The Sphere of Omega. By Glenn Mays, born in Belgium, Antwerp, Giel, the 20th of November 1990. A finite spherical universe governed by conservation, causality, and gravitational equilibrium. Part 1. Dismantling the Big Bang. The origin problem. Greater than you cannot define an origin without violating causality and conservation. Conservation law. No creation, no destruction equals no beginning, no end. Causality. Action requires a prior cause. So what initiated the Big Bang? This creates an infinite regress. The contradictions of observation. Antimatter problem. Why isn't there symmetry if the Big Bang made matter and antimatter? Lithium problem. Predictions don't match observed lithium levels. Old stars problem. Stars are older than the proposed age of the universe. 3 problems, or just one. The underlying problem for all equals origin. Remove origin equals 3 problems go away. Redshift bias. Misread is dispersion rather than accumulation. CMB confirmation bias, misinterpreted inverse square radiation. Singularity contradiction. Why does a black hole singularity destroy, but a universe singularity creates? The black hole versus Big Bang paradox. Greater than if black hole singularities are said to destroy matter from lesser mass. How does a singularity containing all matter generate it instead? Equals death blow to the Big Bang theory. Law-based disproof. Greater than the Big Bang into causality, action-reaction, and conservation. Each one rejects it. Therefore, the Big Bang is law-breaking. Apply logic. 0 action equals 0 reaction. Apply conservation logic. 0 matter cannot become 1 unit of matter. Apply causality. An origin that causes itself is self-refuting. Introduction. The shape you've always lived in, but never recognized. Most modern cosmologists are still caught in the assumption that the universe is expanding endlessly through a fabric that began at a singular origin. Their models depend on mathematical adjustments to preserve this belief, whether by invoking dark matter, dark energy, or inflating a moment of infinite density into space and time. But the very data they rely on has been misunderstood from the start. Today, I present not a theory, but a model grounded in law, a complete, conservation-abiding system with no need for origin myths, broken symmetries, or invisible scaffolding. This model is called the Sphere of Omega, a finite, closed, law-bound system in which matter, energy, and motion are eternally conserved and regulated by geometry itself. What has been missed in plain sight? The universe was always a sphere, you just misread the curve. The cosmic microwave background, the near flatness of the omega parameter, and the illusion of redshift-induced acceleration have all led scientists to classify the universe as flat, or even open, with some still imagining it as saddle-shaped, omega less than 1. But here's the overlooked truth. If the universe is not exactly flat, then it cannot remain flat. A straight line riding along a curve, no matter how gentle, will eventually diverge. The universe's geometry shows values extremely close to flat, omega approximately equals 1 but not exactly. That single discrepancy is all you need. Flat geometry. Only valid if omega equals 1 exactly. Slight curvature, omega greater than 1, indicates a closed, spherical structure. And when you apply geometry to the observed data, the only consistent outcome is this. The universe is a sphere, not a saddle, not a plane. A sphere. The perfect conserved balloon analogy. Why the universe cannot grow or shrink. Imagine a balloon. It does not gain or lose air. The total volume of contents remains fixed. Now imagine this balloon is not made of rubber, but of space, matter, and motion itself. This is the sphere of omega. It does not expand into nothing. It does not require more energy or mass to grow. It is what it is, a self-contained system. Now picture this balloon as a factory, one that never adds new clay, never throws any away, but remodels the same material forever. Galaxies form. Stars die. Matter transforms. But the factory remains intact. No energy is added. No energy is lost. Only reconfigured. This is what conservation demands. This is what geometry confirms. The spherical dispersion principle. Why are planets round? Why do stars take spherical form? Because spherical symmetry is the only configuration where forces balance uniformly in all directions. Apply this to cosmic scale dispersion. If matter is distributed outward in every direction from any origin point, as in any explosion or dispersal, the shape it assumes must eventually form a spherical shell, especially in a finite system. Spherical dispersion becomes inevitable. And that shape becomes self-defining. The universe's matter and energy are not scattered infinitely. They are distributed through this spherical boundary, each particle occupying a position of balanced gravitational tension. The great attractor and the runaway effect. We observe our own motion toward a mysterious mass concentration called the great attractor. But here's the deeper truth. Every point in the universe is in motion toward its own accumulation center. You only observe your local attractor because you're in motion toward it. But every object in space is experiencing its own gravitational convergence, a runaway effect where denser regions pull faster, accelerating local matter inward. Redshift, when seen from this model, is not a signature of expansion, it's a signature of accumulation momentum. And because our system is closed and spherical, all directions lead toward their own centers of mass. That's why acceleration appears universal. Motion appears directional. Redshift appears consistent. But it's all a projection of local gravity dynamics, not cosmic stretching. Why black holes are necessary, and what they actually are. In the sphere of Omega, black holes are not singularities. They are the conservation endpoints of complex matter disintegration. Black holes, not singularities, but galactic equilibrium zones. Mainstream science treats black holes as mysterious points of infinite density, where matter collapses so completely that not even light can escape. They are regarded as destructive endpoints, unobservable anomalies created by collapse, yet never fully explained without paradox. But once again, this assumption is built on flawed premises. That space and mass can infinitely compress. That physical laws break or pause at the center. That light fails to escape due to some mystical warping of time. Let's be precise now. The black hole within the sphere of Omega is not a hole. It is the natural, observable endpoint of gravitational equilibrium in galactic systems. It is not a mystery. It is a necessity. What you're actually seeing, a black hole, is named for its darkness. But that darkness is misunderstood. You are not witnessing a light-trapping entity. You are witnessing the endpoint of visible transformation. Here's why. There is no light escaping not because light is swallowed, but because there is no light being produced. Matter spiraling into the galactic center reaches a point where it breaks down into fundamental, non-radiating particles that do not reflect, absorb, or emit visible light. This black region is not a tear in spacetime. It's a silent region of particle equilibrium, where the complexity of matter has ended and fundamentals are packed so tightly they no longer express radiation. The flaw in the escape velocity argument. Science often describes black holes by saying, not even light can escape. This implies a necessary escape velocity greater than the speed of light. But there are two major flaws. First, if no radiation is being emitted in the first place, then light not escaping is irrelevant. Second, light is not an object with mass. The concept of trapping light through escape velocity is misapplied physics. Greater than a black hole is not keeping light in. Greater than it is simply not producing light anymore because matter has exited the visible spectrum. The speed of endurance, a superior limiting. The speed of endurance, the threshold beyond which structured matter cannot maintain cohesion under acceleration or centrifugal strain. In the centers of galaxies, as stars orbit ever closer to the gravitational midpoint, their orbital velocity increases. Their structural stability decreases. They eventually spin themselves apart, disassembling into elementary particles. This breaking point is not theoretical, it is visible. The accretion disk lights up from friction and heat as matter spirals inward. But at a certain radius, the light disappears and the object becomes dark. That is not a mystery. That is the visible signature of matter losing structural integrity. Why the galactic center must be dark. Let's use the binary system analogy. In binary stars, two bodies orbit around a shared center of mass. A midpoint neither fully occupies. Apply this in *360° across millions of stars in a galaxy. All are orbiting a shared center. This center is under constant pressure from all directions. It becomes the densest gravitational convergence point not because it sucks, but because everything orbits around it. What happens at that core? Pressure builds. Orbital strain increases. Speed approaches the speed of endurance. Complex matter breaks apart. Light-producing properties vanish. This is not an anomaly. This is the logical conclusion of a perfectly functioning, law-abiding galaxy. Black holes as conservation engines. In a cyclical universe, nothing ends and nothing begins. So what happens to the matter that falls into these black regions? It doesn't vanish. It's stored. It's waiting. It is stripped due. Wn, purified, and held in fundamental form. And when the universal cycle reaches its return, when dispersion has reversed and accumulation converges, this stored matter re-emerges, reconstructed from the raw ingredients preserved in conservation. Black holes are not singularities. They are pressure valves, repositories, raw material banks. Without them, the cycle would stall. No breakdown equals no reformation. They are the digestive system of the universe. Galaxies orbit around compression centers. Matter spirals inward under gravitational strain. At a certain point, orbital speed exceeds the speed of endurance, not the speed of light. Matter breaks down into fundamental, non-radiating particles. These compacted fields create the black regions we observe, not because they destroy light, but because they no longer reflect or emit it. Black holes are galactic regulators. They are essential, not mysterious. Without them, matter would never be reabsorbed and reconfigured. They represent the deconstruction side of the cosmic cycle. Conclusion of the black hole section. Stop calling them black holes. Start calling them what they are. The gravitational centers of conservation and reassembly. The cosmic microwave background, not a relic, but a reflection. For decades, the cosmic microwave background, CMB, has been hailed as the smoking gun of the Big Bang, a nearly uniform 2.7 K radiation field interpreted as the afterglow of creation, a fossil light still echoing from a moment 13.8 billion years ago. But this belief, like redshift interpretation, is built on the premise of a beginning. Remove the origin myth, and the interpretation collapses. Now, I offer the CMB for what it really is. Greater than an ongoing, law-abiding background field of dispersed radiation. Created by all matter in a spherical universe obeying the inverse square law. Let's reconstruct it from reality. 1. The inverse square law and the nature of radiation. Radiation, like gravity and light, diminishes with distance. This is not decay, it is dilution across area. When any radiating body emits energy, that energy spreads over the surface of an expanding sphere. The further you are from the source, the less radiation you detect. This behavior guarantees that in a spherical universe filled with billions of radiating sources, there will be a minimum background radiation L. That level will appear uniform from any location. That radiation will thin, not fade. It doesn't cool, it spreads thinner. 2. The CMB is misread echo. In Big Bang theory, the CMB is a time-stamped snapshot. A moment in the early universe where radiation was frozen in. But this ignores the nature of radiation altogether. In the sphere of Omega, the radiation we see as the CMB is the cumulative diluted output of countless galaxies and matter clusters. Emitted long ago and still traveling. The spherical symmetry of space ensures that radiation is received uniformly from all directions. The 2.7 K value is not a timestamp. It is a steady equilibrium reading. It is not a whisper from the past. It is a soft roar from everywhere, ongoing and alive. CMB, cooling, a misleading interpretation. Science often refers to the CMB as cooling, from a presumed higher temperature. But here's the law-bound truth. Cooling implies internal entropy. Dispersion implies spatial spread. The background radiation appears weaker over time not because it's cooling in a thermodynamic sense, but because it is being inversely diluted over space. This thinning does not stop or expire, it is perpetual. The CMB is not decaying. It is being stretched across the internal skin of the sphere of Omega asterisk, an echo of all matter radiating and moving in balance. Why the CMB is uniform. In a spherical system with even distribution, any observer will be at the center of their visible sphere. Just like standing inside a snow globe, the photons arriving from the edges will appear isotropic. Not because the cosmos exploded from a point, but because geometry forces uniform reception. Distance forces homogenized dilution. Continuous radiation creates a consistent background from every direction. This is not a fossil. This is equilibrium. This is geometry manifesting uniformity. The fatal assumption, the The CMB is a timestamp. By treating the CMB as a frozen event, Big Bang theory assumes a single moment of radiation, a cooling curve over 13.8 billion years, a directional arrow of entropy. But in a closed, conservation-respecting universe, there is no beginning. So what is really happening? You are seeing radiation that was never meant to mark a moment, but to reflect a system in perpetual emission. And because no one can see what has already dissipated past detection, the assumption that this is the first or only radiation is pure confirmation bias. CMB reclaimed. Thus, the cosmic microwave background becomes the equilibrium radiation field, ERF. The ongoing, cumulative, inverse diluted result of galactic radiation in a spherical, finite, closed system. It is not cooling. It is not old. It is not special. It is lawful, predictable, logical, and inevitable. The eternal cycle. Conservation is the architect of time. Mainstream cosmology is obsessed with beginnings and endings. A Big Bang. A heat death. A point of singularity. A cosmic finale. But those concepts are not born of science, they are born of human limitation. The inability to imagine time without edges. Yet nature is not defined by birth or death. It is defined by transformation. The sphere of Omega is not just a shape. It is a cosmic crucible, an eternal, law-abiding engine where nothing is lost, nothing is created, and everything is reconfigured. Let's show the cycle. 1. Dispersion, the outward breath. Imagine all matter entering a high-energy phase, galaxies flinging matter outward from local centers, star systems dispersing, radiation traveling, gravitational pull fighting to hold it all in balance. This is the dispersion phase. It is not an explosion. It is not a beginning. It is the outward motion of matter within a spherical geometry. Not into a void, but into other parts of the closed system. This dispersion is not random. It follows gravitational contours. It slows. It curves. It feeds the next phase. Like breath, the universe exhales its contents. 2. Accumulation, the inward return. As matter slows, curves, and interacts, it begins to cluster. Gravitational attractors grow, pulling more matter into them, building galaxies, star systems, and eventually black regions of fundamental compression. This is accumulation momentum. It does not require extra force. It does not require expansion. It is a natural response to finite dispersion within a spherical arena. And once the energy is sufficiently concentrated, the gravitational pull begins to dominate all motion. Matter begins its return. The universe inhales. 3. Disassembly, the role of black holes. At the heart of accumulation lies a secret. No system can be reborn unless it is first deconstructed. Solid matter cannot rebuild until it is made elemental. This is where black holes, as previously redefined, perform their greatest function. They strip matter of complexity. They store its fundamental form. They hold raw ingredients for the next cycle. This is not destruction. This is reformatting. Black holes are not the end. They are the reset switch that makes renewal possible. 4. Redistribution, the cycle resumes. As accumulation reaches its peak, where all motion curves inward and all matter is held in fundamental storage, the system never collapses. Instead, it rebalances. The finite system must exert its internal pressure. The regions of compression redistribute matter outward. A new dispersion phase begins, not by explosion, but by redistribution of conserved contents. This is not a new Big Bang. It is the continuation of motion, regulated by conservation, shaped by gravity, and driven by spherical symmetry. The cycle has no beginning. It has no end. It only has regulation. 5. Time, reclaimed. In a linear model, time is born at the Big Bang and ends in death. But in the sphere of Omega, time is the visible consequence of conserved transformation. Wherever matter moves, disassembles, or reforms, time is present. You are not watching a timeline. You are watching a rotation of the cosmic wheel. Each rotation has new arrangements. But the materials remain the same. The patterns shift. The properties reconfigure. But the laws persist. This is not mysticism. It is perfect, mathematical conservation, on a scale beyond any explosion or linear cosmology. The universe is not a firework. It is a clock. It does not explode. It does not vanish. It does not stretch. It does not pop. It ticks. And in every tick, it performs its cycle. Dispersion. Accumulation. disassembly, redistribution. And this cycle is forever because it is law-bound. And because it is law-bound, it must repeat. The sphere of Omega is not your beginning. It is your continuation. The final filter, elimination, and the last model standing. We've reached the stage where a true scientific model must withstand not just validation, but confrontation. In science, the ultimate test is not merely to explain. It is to survive the process of elimination. And this is where all other models collapse. 1. Elimination of expansion. Expansion violates conservation. It assumes space itself expands without a cause. It breaks the law of conservation of energy and geometry. It provides no containment boundary, creating paradoxes of infinite spread and unreachable edges. Eliminated. 2. Elimination of the origin. Any beginning implies a moment of creation, which violates conservation. A singularity, which contradicts causality and action-reaction. An initiator, which requires another initiator, falling into infinite regression. Eliminated. 3. Elimination of singularities. Singularities violate every physical law. They destroy matter conservation failure. They collapse all dimensions into undefined states geometry failure. They rely on infinity, a mathematical placeholder, not a physical reality. Eliminated. 4. Elimination of dark matter and energy. Created only to patch the broken behavior of a flawed model. No direct detection, ever. Unnecessary when you apply the correct framework of spherical geometry, relative motion, and conservation. Eliminated. 5. Elimination of the CMB is fossil light. Assumes a one-time event. Contradicted by the inverse square law and ongoing radiation behavior. Uniformity is explained by geometry, not ancient echoes. Eliminated. 6. Elimination of flat and saddle geometry. Flat geometry implies an infinite straight-line universe, a violation of containment and conservation. Saddle geometry implies a bend that creates no return path, geometrically unstable and unsustainable in a closed system. Only a slightly curved, self-closing sphere fits the observable balance of mass, radiation, and motion. Eliminated. What remains? Only one model remains standing. Obeys conservation. Obeys gravity. Obeys causality. Matches observed geometry. Requires no inventions. Provides no paradoxes. Explains every discrepancy with natural law. And aligns with the reality laid bare. The sphere of Omega. This is not a theory of convenience. It is a model that remains when nothing false survives. You don't believe in it. You don't wish for it. You arrive at it by force. Because logic has eliminated everything else. And if science is honest, if it lives by its own principles, it must accept what remains after illusion, patchwork, and paradox have been removed. That is this model. That is this reality. That is the sphere of Omega.